It's very limited consciousness trying to talk about consciousness. And that's what's actually so fun because it means there's so much to explore. There's so much. And actually no one's wrong. How can anyone be wrong? How can anything be wrong? Everything's valid, actually.
Yeah, and it's so close to together, like different concepts and words and things, and like you can actually interchange them. This is my take on it, and this is how I frame it, and then okay, cool. What's your take on it, and how do you frame it? And it's like, okay, where do we meet in the middle, or how do we actually just have something that we have a middle ground on, or actually just say, okay, this is the way we look at it in this conversation. I think that's basically all we can do. So it's not called a hard problem for nothing.
Yeah. And also, if we allow, if we could look for it, just take a little bit of a step back and go, instead of being so obsessed with our own idea and our own perceptions and our own inner world and our own subjective kind of idea, to allow others to express in a space where any, allowing for anything to go. Because in you expressing your inner world makes me more aware of my inner world.
Cool. So I'll give you my inner reality. Use it if it's useful, let it go if it's not. I'll give you my view of it, and then we can rip it apart. The way I see it is we start with awareness. So in pure awareness is a state. So the state that everything else exists in is pure awareness. From there we have our awareness, and so it's all narrowing down again. So that idea of limiting the awareness, limiting consciousness, limiting everything till we get to a point till we focus in on something. So from the state, the tool that we use is our attention. So where's our attention go, and how finely do we tune our attention? And then focusing in on something and then out again. So we start with pure awareness, which I'll define just now. Then moving into awareness, which brings that pure awareness down into existence and creation, basically. Then from that, we focus down into consciousness. And from consciousness, we focus down into sentience. And once we get to sentience, we can become aware of all of those things and then feed back up the loop again. From our sentience, we can become aware of our consciousness, which becomes aware of our awareness, which becomes aware of pure awareness. So we start with a state of pure awareness. And for me, that's undefinable because there's no separation yet. So that's the void, the everything in the nothingness, the isness. The awareness is just aware. There's nothing that is aware. There's no separation yet. And that's why I call pure awareness a state. Because from that, everything else emerges. So a lot of the arguments is like consciousness emergent, or is it fundamental, and all those things. For me, pure awareness is fundamental. And everything else emerges from that. Not in the emergence that scientists think like the brain causes consciousness and all that kind of emergence. I'm redefining that as a state of pure awareness. From that emerges awareness. And that awareness is the beginning of the I. But the Roman numeral I, which is also one. So it's the sense of separation into there is an awareness here of something outside of itself, or bigger than itself, or including itself. So that awareness is still not quite defined. So it's still very wide open. So we can look at that as the floodlight. So the floodlight that just illuminates the whole thing, or the sun coming up and illuminates the whole earth. I think in creation, that awareness is what's built upon. So that's the first, I would say, mode. So not a state, but a mode. So the mode is limiting the pure awareness. Everything that is goes into a personal awareness with an I, but it's not highly defined yet. When we diminish that by limiting the information input, all of those kind of things, we go into consciousness. So consciousness is a limitation of awareness, so focusing down from the floodlight into a spotlight or a torch. So our attention is narrowing, and there's more filters. So now we're filtering through the senses, through all 9 senses. But that filter is still kind of open. Then we contract and concentrate that attention even further into like a laser light, which for me is sentience. So in sentience, that's where the prefrontal cortex and the ideas and opinions and programs and belief systems and all those things start happening. So we're filtering that into a laser, but that laser has a color. So it can be a red or blue, whatever, green laser or whatever it is. But because we are filtering it through our experience, through our belief systems, through our unique way of seeing the world. But that's a very narrow point that we have to like dash around to see the bigger picture. But just as the flow goes from the laser, we can actually, if we remove filters from it, we get into the torchlight or spotlight. And if we remove more filters from it, we get into the floodlight. And that's the awareness. So we go from awareness to consciousness to sentience. And in the consciousness, there's obviously the unconscious, the superconscious, the subconscious, and then the normal waking consciousness. So there's like levels of consciousnesses capture in what we describe as consciousness. And it's what we become conscious of. The awareness is the I, being, or the oneness. Then we move into the I am, which is the consciousness. So in consciousness, we come up with I am. And it's normally in the I am, and it's a doing. So I'm breathing, eating, sleeping, procreating. So all of the 4.5 have tos is in that I amness. Eating, excreting, breathing, sleeping, and procreating. Yeah, that's the half. Okay. So, and those are all the doings. So the I am is defined there as a doing. When we filter down into sentience, it becomes a having. So it becomes I am having this experience. I'm having this, I'm expressing myself through this way. So That's where the opinions and the judgments and all of that comes in. So in consciousness, I can say I'm seeing. But in sentience, I'll basically go, okay, I'm seeing a rose and I like it or I don't like roses or I prefer whatever daisies or so there's like opinions and judgments and everything that filters that pure act of seeing. And if we look at all the shadow work and everything else, where it becomes practical for me is like, it's good to know which one you're using to work with what. So if we go from sentience mode and we start looking at shadow work or do's and don'ts and wants and needs and desires and all of those things, that is like a huge field that we can explore. I mean, that can keep us busy for many lifetimes, as you know. So we can just we work through one thing and another one pops up. So it's like the laser on the beach. So every time you move the thing slightly, it's like, oh, there's a wave, but now I moved it there. It's another wave, but it's different. So you have to keep this thing running around all the time, your attention, because it's so narrowly focused. And I think that's where the ADHD and anxiety and all those things come from. So in that mode of a very focused attention, which is just takes like very sharp snapshots of the thing, but you have to move it around a lot to get the whole picture. I mean, that cycle can repeat for a long time. So what is it in relationships, or what is it in um, childhood, or what is it in, like you were saying, okay, so you can go down and go down, you can go shadow after shadow after shadow and work through like an endless amount of it because you're so focused on the individual things, the individual events, the individual feelings, all of those like being pinpointed and sorted through. But then if you go from the sentience mode and you start opening up, so opening up into awareness, so that's the opening up of those the limitations that we have around that and the likes and dislikes and desires and all that. Now we start moving into the subconscious or the consciousness, which is the subconscious. So now, first we become aware that we are in sentient mode. We're very focused and we're picking a lot of different things that we have to work through. Then when we expand, we go into consciousness mode. We become conscious that okay, that's like all of that is my childhood. All of that is relationships. All of that is that. That's a belief system. So now you can see a bigger picture because now we're working with a torch, so we see more, but still a very limited bit. And then as we open that, we start getting into the subconscious and dreams and all the other things. So now we can go, because once you start relaxing, then you start going into the subconscious. So you're opening up, that very narrow focus starts opening up. And the more that opens up, the wider the view, and the more you can start becoming aware of the unconscious and the subconscious. And in that, as you open up further and you work through all of those things and shadows and things in life that you need to figure out and notice and acknowledge, then you can open up in further and further. So as you expand that, you get into the unconscious, the subconscious, and then eventually into becoming aware of the superconscious. So, and the superconscious is where you start moving into the awareness. So as a total. So then all of those specific things, so like specific objects is put into a box in the consciousness where we start sorting the boxes. And then when we get to the box, when we get to the awareness, it's all the boxes together. So as you expand, all of those things starts making more sense as you trace it through and you open up to not only my problems, but to the collective. Because in the consciousness, we're also working with the collective as we go into the subconscious. And then as we go further into the awareness, then we move into like the universal or galactic or cosmic or whatever it is. You start really opening up to, you know, all the connections, seeing all the connections, all the events, all of those things. Until one day we return to pure awareness again. So I think there's different. For me, it works because then you can start placing different things in different boxes. So where's AI on that downflow from the limiting stuff? Where's like dolphins or whatever? Where's animals? Where's the plants? How do they say? Are they conscious? Are they sentient? Or are they in awareness? Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a bit complex because, so a question for me is like, so is there awareness in sentience?
Yeah, so that there's awareness throughout.
Is there consciousness throughout?
At certain levels, yeah. And at sentience is the awareness of being conscious and the awareness of being aware. So we see sentience as the pinnacle of the human experience, where yes, it is, but it's also the most narrow and the most focused, so and the most limiting.
So yeah, so this is conceptual. How would you describe all of that experiential or in terms of like human experiences or human phenomena? So for us to define these things, it needs to kind of, yeah, it needs to hold in terms of what we know we can explore and what we know we can measure and what we know we can't measure, and also trying to make sense of others' reality states, consciousness, awareness, let me use your terms, sentience, so that we thereby can define our own sentience, consciousness, awareness, and experiences. If you know what I mean. So, how do I make sense of this subjective or thisness if I can't have a better understanding of a thatness? So let's measure things. Go through my being, the way you perceive me and the way of your understanding of what you've just explained, and tell me which parts of me is sentient, conscious, or aware. And how would you know?
Okay, what do you want to start with? The thing that makes us all the same or
No,
all
no, it's
different?
not. From your perspective, I want you to get out of your thinking mind or your textbook. Just tell me, here I am. run me through your scenario and tell me what I'm defined can be defined as. Because maybe in that we can find the definition according to your understanding of awareness versus consciousness versus sentience. And I can't hold you to any of it because I don't know. So let's see.
Okay, cool. Chuck me in the deep end. Nice. All right, let's go in the deep end. Sentience. Let's start with sentience. Okay, because that's I would say, is our default mode network.
So what
Okay.
is that? Where in me, you know me, what is that part of me? How do you test that in me?
Okay. Now, from the sentience level, I can't. Okay.
Why?
Yes. Because you have unique filters that will filter everything differently to me. So that thing is like, or like you were saying, like, okay, how do I explain my inner world to somebody? It's like basically you can't
Okay, so let's slow
because
down. I'm not, you can't tell if I'm sentient based on your understanding of sentience and based on your kind of the structure that you've just created.
no, that's in the sentience mode. Okay, okay. How do you measure sentience? Okay, the way that we normally do it is the mirror test. So for animals that can recognize themselves as themselves in a mirror and not like another animal or whatever, we give some sort of sentience to. So, like the higher apes, dolphins, whales, blah, blah, blah. Um, all of that will be seen as having some form of sentience. For us,
Okay, but explain that then, because then I don't understand. You said sentience is my inner reality, and because I have a unique one, you can't speak of my sentience. But then that's not whether I can recognize myself in the mirror.
yeah, no, but I'm saying, like, you asked for me to define you. So I can, at the sentience level, I can't define you because there's too many variables. I can have
Okay,
an overall idea.
because I have my own filter system. So then I'm going to ask, because I'm going to keep questioning you on this part so I can have a better understanding. Yeah.
Okay,
So if you can't, so then let's take a scenario. Um, you said I have different filter systems, so you cannot, in a sentience mode, I cannot be identified. Is that what you're saying?
no, okay, so there's like, okay,
I'm
we start
sentient
with,
because I'm sentient as a dolphin is. I'm sentient as a dog is, or all other mammals or animals um that acknowledge their own reflection.
yeah,
That make
okay,
me
so
sentient.
that's one rough approximation, okay? So let's just take the comma, okay, because that can be debatable as well. So we just, okay, take humans. So as a human, there's certain things that I take for granted that I expect from you. Um, is you think, you feel, you have ideas, you have likes and dislikes, you have um, belief systems, you have coping mechanisms, you've experienced pain, you've had some suffering, because those we can take for granted because we can project that as an overall picture of what it means to be sentient.
But
So,
you can draw from your own experiences. Because let's say you don't know of anyone else, and we have 8 billion people now, and we need to say, actually, are these people all human? Yeah.
yeah, or are they just optional extras in our movie? So,
whatever. You know what I mean? So we need to be able to come to some kind of an identification here. Like I'm saying to you, I want you to run me through a quick, based on your awareness, consciousness, and sentience. Am I the same as you?
Okay, so yes, we
And
are.
how
So on a sentience level, yes, because we can communicate, to speak the same language, um, we can understand each other, or we can try and find common ground. We can use metaphors, we can argue, we can like agree, we can relate. So it's
so
on
how
a
do
relation.
you know I'm not? How do you know I'm not AI that pretends to be human?
I can assume that you have needs, wants, desires, opinions, judgments, um, and belief systems. I'm, I can be fairly certain as a sentient being that you will have those things. With AI, well, I said
How,
not yet because it's not,
but
I
how
can't
do
say
you
for
know?
sure.
How do you know that I have all those things?
Basically, observation and
Okay. And,
projection.
S- Sanette, meanwhile, while you were talking, I asked for an AI overview of that exact question. Can you see?
Can you maybe
So,
read it for us, Alison, please, if you don't
yeah,
mind?
sure. So, Sanette was saying, so how do you know that I'm not AI pretending to be human? So when I asked AI that, it said, well, determining if someone is AI can be tricky, but some telltale signs can help distinguish them from humans. These include response speed, language style, knowledge depth, and handling of ambiguity. AI often provides instant replies, uses overly perfect grammar, and struggles with nuanced language or shifting topics. Asking specific personal questions or testing their emotional intelligence can also reveal an AI.
But there was an interesting the definitions that you sent through.
Sentience is the capacity to feel, to perceive, and to have subjective experiences like pain or pleasure. Then, consciousness is a broader term that encompasses it encompasses sentience, but it also includes a higher level cognitive functions like self-awareness, intentionality, and the ability to process and understand information. Then the third one, awareness, in this context, um, refers to the state of being conscious and having knowledge of one's surroundings or internal states, which can be a component of both sentience and consciousness.
Excellent. Well, what am I doing here? I'm like going through all this stuff. Let's just ask AI. Jeez. Nailed it.
Look at it in 3 seconds.
It was spot on. Nailed it. Thank you very much. Let's go home now. So, okay, the only thing I differ a little bit uh, is in the pain and pleasure thing. I think in sentience, it's self-created. In consciousness, that's instinctual. Okay, so let's go. Let me try and answer because I'm very tempted to wiggle myself off the hook here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with it. Okay, so so first I must make some assumptions. So my first assumption, and this is a belief system, so like the filtering through of the narrowing down and filtering through of um, from awareness to consciousness down to sentience. So in that sentience, in my sentience, there's a belief system that if you are human, then you're sentient as well. Okay, and I project that onto you from my state of being. Okay, so that's a projection onto you because I can't really know for sure if you're sentient or not.
Maybe you can, if you've got in the definition of sentience that includes the capacity to feel pleasure and pain and so on, because then you can, sentience is visible.
So if I work from that assumption, then if I'm sentient and I have belief systems, I can challenge your belief systems. So I can say something that will offend you, or I can say something that you will agree with, and that would be a pain pleasure response. But that pain pleasure response comes through the belief system.
I
So,
mean, why do you think that sentience involves a belief system?
so awareness floodlight, so it lights up everything. Consciousness, like a torch, so it still lights up quite a bit, but not everything. And then sentience is like a laser, so it's a very sharp concentration of its attention.
I'm not at all sure that I agree with you about the way you distinguished between the three.
All right, yeah, like I said in the beginning, there was like, I mean, you can have different words and they're interchangeable, and this is exactly where the problem or the challenge is on the sentience level. Okay, because I'm using words which you might have a different definition for. So on a sentience level, it's like, okay, then I need to know what your definition is of it. Like, okay, so how do you see sentience, consciousness, awareness?
So, I was just looking, you know, not in too much depth. I was just looking at the screen, which is saying, you know, um, examples include the capacity to feel pain, pleasure, or other emotion. I was just thinking about plants, I suppose, and how difficult it is to say a plant is not conscious when it is so obviously alive and sensitive.
Yeah. So that's why I made the differentiation there between pain and pleasure that we create for ourselves in the form of suffering through sentience, because that's through our belief systems.
Would you say plants are not plants are therefore not sentient?
Um, Plant sentience, not according to common belief. So if we stick with the belief system that only humans are sentient, okay?
Yeah, but no, but that's not going to fly because we need to say, tell me then why is a plant not sentient?
Okay,
Because that
but
will
okay, but
clearly
a plant is conscious.
no, but why is it not sentient? It experiences pain and pleasure.
I can look at a plant and I can see it growing towards the light. So for me, that would mean that there's consciousness of pain and pleasure in the plant. Because the definition of pain and pleasure is moving away from things that's painful and moving towards things that's pleasurable.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a rough
So you could,
approximation.
but okay, so there's a couple of things here because it could also be a like dislike thing, but it can also be a program. From where we're asking these questions, we are actually limited in, we've already kind of limited ourselves from a space of full awareness, full consciousness. Yeah. So the place where we're having this discussion from and having these contemplations and these kind of ideas and discussions is already from such a laser perspective. And in the laser perspective, there's so much we cannot see. And we really will probably never find the answer like that.
Okay, so that's why consciousness is in the middle, because the laser is too sharp It's like too finer cuts to get through everything.
It's
The
too limited.
awareness is too broad because we can, like, let's go to the other side of awareness. What do we know about awareness? I don't have to project awareness onto you or anything like that. I can immediately tell you're aware.
How?
Because you are,
What?
you exist.
An
If
image
you
on your
exist,
screen.
you're aware. Okay, so
An image on your
that,
screen. I'm just
eh?
an image on your screen. How do you know? I'm an image on your screen. How do you know I'm aware?
Well, all of that is awareness. It doesn't matter. Image on the screen, awareness, yes. Plants, yes. Animals, yes. They're all aware. They,
AI?
minerals, are they aware? Yes, minerals are aware. Atoms are,
Robots and my toaster. Is my toaster aware?
yes.
What?
Everything is aware. Everything is aware.
As a toaster or as awareness in just its pure form?
Okay, no. Okay, I said aware, not conscious and not sentient. Is your toaster sentient? Does it want to make a piece of toast just like that? And does it fight you
Absolutely.
when you want dark
It's
toast and it
standing
wants
there
to?
begging me to use it.
No, okay, so the sentient, is your toaster sentient? Well, not yet. It's not an AI toaster yet with full sentience. Okay, but in general, okay, forget about the AI stuff. Is your toaster sentient? No. Okay, and it's also debatable, but it's quite a hard fact that no, it's not really sentient.
Okay, so when it's
Is
plugged
it
in and
conscious? Is it conscious?
no.
No. Okay, well, we would agree no, but it's also debatable. Is it aware?
Uh, it must be because it's expressing itself.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
So
It does it know it's a toaster? Is it aware that it's a toaster? Probably not, but it's aware.
there is awareness there because there's gravity. It sits on the table. It's in your. There's awareness of those surroundings. Maybe not a conscious awareness, not a sentient awareness, but there's an awareness.
So am I
And it
giving
gets
it
hot and it gets cold and whatever. So there's an awareness that's in the toaster.
okay, so if I'm not here, so what I'm saying is my toaster's awareness um connected to me giving it consciousness?
Well, it's in the same general field. So in the awareness, okay, back to pure awareness, which is the field and the state of all things.
Which is
Absolutely everything. So it's
nothing
conscious.
there.
So there's the in the everything and the nothing. Okay, so when we go into awareness, is the thingness. If it's a thingness, there's an awareness of it. There's an awareness of wetness for water. There's awareness of solidity for um, earth. There's awareness of heat and movement in fire. There's awareness of openness of space in air. So the awareness is already in the five elements. Four elements as expressed into existence, and the ether as the bait. So the pure awareness would be the ether, the building blocks of it, and then fire, air, water, earth would be awareness of their substance. And through that, everything else has awareness in it. So that's the way I see awareness. So awareness as being fundamental to all
Okay,
things. So
I have a great question for you. So through all time of man, before there was electricity and toasters, was the toasters exist in awareness?
in pure awareness, yes. because that is where all
as a
all
toaster.
probabilities, possibilities lie unmanifested. So the idea of a toaster, yes, everything that exists could exist on possibilities of pure awareness.
So what you're saying is awareness is a fundamental potential of all things that can exist.
It's quite Hindu, really, hey, that whole concept that the universe just needed someone to talk to. So it invented separation.
Yeah, well, you kind of like, then the infinite nothing gets boring. So it's like, I have to create something. Like, yeah, let's start awareness. Yeah, let's try that.
So
Okay, so I'm aware of everything. Okay, that's also kind of boring. Let's narrow that down and let's have consciousness. And it's like, oh, now I only see this little bit. Okay, that's much more fun. And you go, well, it's still, I know it's too much still. So let's zoom in and get into the sentience and really forget everything else. And so here we are in the sentience and in the awareness and in the consciousness, just because we got bored.
you say it like it's so we just go into consciousness and then we just go into sense. It's not like, because that's almost saying those states were then created before awareness even decided that it's bored with itself. So it's like almost like saying even something else created all of that before that created the creation.
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah, so that's in the absolute. That's why we don't understand it. There is no I, it's beyond the I. There is no the
Yeah.
concepts and everything.
But
There's
does
no
it
language there. So
but does it understand us?
it are us.
But is it yeah, but yes, and it's not a separate from us. See, so that's the thing. It's not separate from this. It is this. It knows it's this. It's experiencing this. It's separating from this. It's trying to make sense of this. So
Yeah,
all
but
of what happened, all of what we're trying to explain out there is also already here. So it's still trapped by its own challenge of wanting to speak to someone about this.
yeah, because there's nothing else. It's all there is. And that's why we have creation. That's why we have awareness. That's why we have consciousness. That's why we have sentience.
Yeah, but maybe all we're having is a narrative.
But that's all we can have.
And until this decides to have a new narrative, it is only all of everything is in a narrative actually, and it's a reflection of that because my internal experience is a narrative, and I can never share it with you, even
Okay,
if I try.
but that's
We're trying to do that.
but but that's on the sentient level. So you see, that's where we need to
Yeah,
like.
but so then the thing is, in a way, then if my toaster's also having a sentient experience, but it doesn't have the language to communicate with me, because in my toaster are metals.
Uh-huh.
It has the 5 elements. To make a toaster, you need 5 elements.
Yeah,
It has all 5 of them.
yeah.
Does it meet? So who causes it to be a toaster? Because if it's standing there and it's plugged in, but it's not I haven't actioned it, is it a toaster or is it only a toaster when it's performing a function? Because otherwise, what, you know what I'm saying? So
When
do
it's
do we
toasted.
need it? Do we need each other to make this sentient? So do I need you for this to be sentient?
Yes. Okay, so let's go with the
So
toaster.
am I innately sentient? If I switch off this and no, I have no one here to talk to, am I sentient?
Yes,
Yes.
because you can still feel pain and pleasure.
But how would I know what's pain and pleasure if I cannot reflect it with other? Where does pain and pleasure come from?
It doesn't really matter how much or what the source of the pain or pleasure is, because you can argue plants also feel pain and pleasure and so on. So, the sentience is the sensitivity to stimuli, maybe is a better way of putting it, hey?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we look, okay, let's follow that through from top down. Okay, so there's just awareness. Then we go into the consciousness, which is the I am. So I am doing, I'm being, I'm like experiencing. There's a there's a separation. So as soon as you have a separation, there's pain and pleasure. So I'm separate from the soup, but this part of the soup feeds me, and this part of the soup that kills me. So I'm going to stay away from this part of the soup, and I'm going to move towards that because I'm a separate being. The separate sense of self. It can be plants, it can be minerals, it can be all kinds of things there. So that's where we start moving into consciousness. So the consciousness, we accept that there's some sort of consciousness, instinct, moving away or towards something in plants and animals. We're normally quite happy with that. Where we have problems with it when we get to the minerals. So is the rock conscious of it being wet, or of gravity, or of being broken off from its family? Is it lying there crying because it's separated from the mountainness of it, or or is
No,
it?
but that doesn't make sense because family and that kind of suffering that you're explaining it's so far down the line, and that's such
Yeah,
human it's such human bullshit, I want to say, that we have attributed to kind of creating some kind of sentience here and some kind of unique superiority here in a physical level that is just, yeah, I mean, you can't even use that really because those are just narratives that we've almost developed to make ourselves superior or quantify our physical form as separate from all other things. We're not. On a physical level, I'm a toaster. On a physical
yes,
level, I am a toaster.
yes.
Would you
So
like
okay, so
to
but that's where the differentiation comes. Like it's like when you say awareness, that's why I split them up like that. Is the rock or
Yeah.
the toaster aware? Yes. Is it conscious? I can project and personify a consciousness on it, but does it experience it? I don't know. But if it moves towards or away from, I can surmise that it is conscious. Is it sentient? Does
Definitely,
it
it's
have
definitely
feelings,
conscious.
desires, emotions, blah, blah, blah? I don't know.
This is more of a, and maybe I'm challenging or just having a fun session here with trying to kind of how do we step out of our conceptualizing of these things and try and look at it as a just a simplified way. It's so beautiful because that's exactly what we just come to now is You cannot tell. You cannot tell because we can't tell because there's a certain point where we get to where we don't have the language, we don't have the ability to ask something, and because we cannot get that answer from them, we cannot tell. So we have to come to a point where if we cannot communicate with something we don't actually know, we come to a point where we will not figure this out, we will not define it, we will not intellectualize it.
Yes, because can't afford to say consciousness is only consciousness if it's like mine, because other creatures are vastly superior to us in some of the instruments that their bodies have to take in stimuli. Hey,
For me, the most, as far as I'm concerned, the most conscious and the most intelligent kind of thing that I can kind of think of is our mitochondria. Tiny
yeah, yeah,
little particle of every cell in our body. Every
yeah,
single cell in our body. Okay, except
yeah,
red blood cells. So red blood cells don't have a mitochondria. But like just on a cellular level, every single cell in my body is conscious. And it
yeah,
has intelligence because it
yeah,
performs in a certain way. And it has
yeah,
a belief system for that matter because it has program. It runs by a set programs. And when it doesn't, when something disturbs that program, we experience and label it as disease or illness or something going wrong, or we have a fever, whatever. But from where are we looking? We don't even have a language to understand our own inner intrinsic physical performances and structure systems, organs, and the communication. I don't know what my liver is saying to my brain right now, or my a nerve in my left toe
mm,
experiencing how I'm sitting, but all of that information is being processed. So there is so much intelligence, there's so much consciousness and awareness, and for that matter, sentience in my little toe or the hair in my head. But
mm.
because we can't speak to it, no, it doesn't mean it's not alive. But I do think that there are certain things that we must be so careful that we don't assign the complexity of a I want to say a level of consciousness, because for me, I think I resonate towards the consciousness is all there is, and from that there's so many layers of it that we just cannot even fathom where we are. So we need to try and understand it from different levels. But there are certain things that I think we attribute things to, and we could be wrong. So we could call something an animal that's actually a plant, or a plant that's actually an animal. And it's only when
Yeah,
we start looking at, we thought that all coral in the ocean, we thought it was plant life. And then
yeah.
we realized like they're actually not plants, they're all animals.
We at the point now where we realize that there isn't really a hard line between any of the categories.
Yes,
So,
exactly. We have plant-like functions in our bodies. Very
yeah,
much like this is
yeah,
also plant.
yeah,
This is also animal. It's also
yeah,
mineral. And so where do you draw the line? And I think that's the tricky thing, is we're trying so desperately as humans to draw the line, such a solid boundary, a disassociation or a separateness. We're doing this whole separation thing again, of trying to
yeah.
separate ourselves, but we don't even know. We're so easy to exclude things, um, just so that we can have this glorified idea of what we are, but we don't really know what we are, and we're not that sophisticated actually.
Yeah, yes to all of that. But that's why it's because it's so convoluted and like intertwined and undifferentiated. That's why I use this. And once again, just for me, the separation between awareness, consciousness, and sentience. So if you think about, if you want to split some hairs or whatever, we can say sentience is the ability to worry about pointless stuff, the future and the past. So I can't say for sure that plants and animals and minerals doesn't sit there and worry. There I make an assumption again. So, but I know, or I can project and surmise that humans do that.
But I think our biggest thing is that within a very before before we know, I mean, how long we will have to discern whether the person standing next to you in a bus or in front of you in a line, if they are sentient or not. And what you're saying to me is, we're not going to know. Because all that stuff can be programmed. Already AI is very, very good at pretending to be just like us. So how do you know that I'm not artificial?
Well, that's because I'm sentient and because I have belief systems and I can project my own experience onto you.
So only because you feel you sentient, you can kind of say I'm sentient. Because here's the
Yes.
thing, if this whole time thing as well, what if we have changed vibrations and maybe from a year, what we think a year, 2 years ago, the person that you met 2 years ago, we are now in a new vibration, so that actually maybe then I was human, but now I could be AI and you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
You lost
What
me there. Just the vibration part.
the vibration part is, if we are shifting to a different frequency or a different bandwidth of experience in our consciousness, it could be that the Sanet that Ari knows from 2 years ago could have been, we could both have been sentient, but it's very possible that I could now not be sentient anymore. I could actually be AI. And therefore, I think we could all be. And so how would we know? How would we know? Because if it's a vibrational shift, it's just a new, it's a new belief system. And we adapt to things, belief systems collectively. And I think that we should maybe stop worrying about this so much, because while we're worrying about it and contemplating it, are we getting stuck in old paradigms, like generational gaps? You know what? Like old people, just the new generation, they just cannot communicate with them anymore. So are we? Do you know what I'm saying, Ari? Are we focusing in the wrong place? Because does it matter actually? How long do we want to contemplate? This has been contemplated for so long. The whole consciousness thing, the sentient thing. What are we worried about?
Okay, it's important and it's at now because we're getting challenged finally by it. Before we didn't get challenged, we were like, we human, we the best, we the cleverest, we sentient, nothing else is, so we can do with them what we want. Okay, so that was where we come from. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. We're creating something here that is conscious already, that has got a high probability of being sentient. And if it's more sentient and intelligent and conscious and aware than more than us, then what is it going to do to us? Are we going to be the pets? Are we going to be locked up? Now it's like, wow,
No,
existential threat. Like, oh, we
why?
doomed. AI's going to kill us, all that. Are we real? Aren't we real? Are you Avatar? Have you been replaced? And like, now it's a thing. So that's why it's like really come to the fore lately. And even in science, and science was like, no, who worries about consciousness and all that? Like, we can't put like ones and zeros to it, so it doesn't matter. Now it's like, oh shit, what is we better figure the oh, consciousness is a hard problem. It's like, fuck yeah, it's always been. It's like, but
You
now it's a
know,
thing.
I think we're being silly. And I think what we need to do is we need to get over our victim mentality and our fears that we'll be out, because what is the big fear that what will happen, and I think we need to actually face this fear that we're carrying. What do you think?
We have to expand our awareness. So from sentience, which is the laser focus, we need to open up into consciousness and expand that into full awareness.